to the City Council special meeting for December 8th, 2025, 5:30 p.m., City Council Chambers, 111 East Maple. And so welcome. The first thing is we've got a public hearing. If I'm correct, this is a public hearing that was continued from the last meeting, so we don't have to actually open it if I'm correct.
So by order of operations, that hearing will come later. The first public hearing is with respect to the tax increment financing.
Okay.
The continued hearing is with respect to the Chapter 100 transaction.
Okay. So I do need to open this one up.
Correct.
Okay. So I now open up a public hearing. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
A public hearing for the application approving Wally's tax increment financing plan. Full public hearing.
Thank you.
So I need to start this public hearing by offering onto the record TIF exhibits number 1 through 10. These are the TIF plan that's being presented to council tonight and all of the documents that show notice was given in accordance with the TIF Act to taxing jurisdictions and the public. So you can just note that that's received onto the record.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then just do the first read then here, or anyone want to come speak?
So I'll introduce the item, and then we'll have the developer provide a presentation.
Thank you very much.
So this public hearing is with respect to two ordinances, one that approves the TIF plan and certain other findings and actions, and the other that approves the TIF project in furtherance of the plan. And this is with respect to the Wally's tax increment financing plan, which describes the redevelopment of the old Kmart site at I-70 and Nolan Road. This project will remove the remaining blighted components that are located on that site and replace them with an approximately 54,000 square foot travel center under the Wally's name. There are approximately $52.9 million of total investment in this project, and about 9.8, a little more than 9.8 of that is related to traffic improvement costs, public improvement costs that are required as part of completing this project. Based on that, the developer is requested that $8.6 million be reimbursable to the developer through the series of revenue streams that I'll describe in a minute. $7.6 million of that will go as reimbursement to the developer, plus any interest that accrues on that after certification and prior to repayment. And $1 million of that will go to city-directed improvements for transportation purposes within the Nolan Road corridor. This also involves a sales tax exemption request, which is the Chapter 100 hearing that we'll get to momentarily. And that is to produce sales tax exemption on construction materials, which is estimated at approximately a $2.3 million benefit in reduced cost to the developer. The reimbursement streams are from TIF and TDD funds. The TIF funds include the capture of 50% of the existing Nolan Road CID, which covers this area as well. The sales tax that is imposed by that CID will be captured as part of the TIF economic activity taxes. So the revenue streams are TIF pilots. With respect to the pilots, similar to the hub transaction, only 50% of the pilots will be captured and applied to reimbursement to the developer, and the other 50% will flow to the taxing jurisdictions, the same as they would in absence of TIF. The economic activity taxes, or EATs, which is a sales tax increment, that's captured at a rate of 50% by statute, and that is what's described in this plan. And additionally, a TDD, or Transportation Development District, will be formed to cover certain of the public improvements, and that will add a 1% sales tax, half of which will be captured by TIF, and half of which will separately fund improvements related to this project. There's a blight study in the agenda packet you received that details the blighting factors on which the blight finding can be made as described in the ordinances. And the bonds that will be issued in this that fund project improvements will be issued by the Industrial Development Authority. That process will be started shortly after approval, presuming that this is approved on the 15th. And that will not require any city backing or any city subsidies other than the TIF and TDD revenues that I've already described. There will be no annual appropriation backing for that financing. This comes with the recommendation of city staff and the unanimous approval from the TIF Commission. So at this point, we'll ask the developer to come up and make their presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Kirk Peterson here on behalf of Wally's 900 West, 48th Place, Kansas City, Missouri. If it's okay with you, although there's two separate actions, I'll speak one time so you don't have to hear me twice, and of course can answer questions for them separately though.
Okay, thank you.
So at the outset, I just want to thank you all because I know you carved out special time for this project tonight. Great appreciation. Again, thank you. As each of you knows, it's been a long process for this project up to this point, and we're absolutely thrilled to be at the doorstep of launching the project. Quick overview. As you can see on the screen, now you can see on the screen in an efficient way for the public record, since we are having public hearings, I want to let each of you get a sense of the developer, the project site, and the proposed project. Again, I know you all are accustomed to this, you know these things, but I'll go through quickly for the public record. And then I want to spend just a little bit of time on the specific public incentives that David did a good job of mentioning, and end with really the value proposition, because that's what all of you are about, the value proposition for the people of Independence. So with that, we'll look at I actually did add a couple of colorful slides. These are the iconic colors and images of Wally's that people have come to love. So flipping through those, I know several of you have been able to visit. So the developer, Wally's is the proposed developer. They develop their own projects. The man that has ushered this project forward, you've seen his face many times, is Michael Rubenstein. He's the founder and the CEO. Wally's is based in Fenton in the state, closer to St. Louis. They have two other stores. They have two stores, I should say, the Fenton store and the Pontiac, Illinois store. They're getting ready to open their third store in Whitestown, Indiana, later this year, next year, this coming summer. The project site, which you can see on the screen, is truly a redevelopment project site. It was the former Kmart, which all of you know quite well, right at the northeast quadrant of Nolan and I-70. You can see the boundaries on the screen in front of you. It also had the former Northern Tool occupied building. This is a tough site. Some images that come from the blight study here, you can see on the screen some of the conditions that were present. Deteriorating site conditions, constant homeless encampments, trespassing, illegal activities. It was not hard to find statutory blight on this site. Something you all know very well is the city took the, I'd say, a pretty uncommon step of stepping forward and actually raising the Kmart building, given the issues that were happening there. And when Wally's stepped up to acquire the property, Wally's reimbursed the city $200,000 for the city's cost of knocking down the Kmart building, and then turned around and paid an astonishing $2 million in back taxes that accumulated, that were owed to all the taxing jurisdictions, including the city, to get everything up to snuff before they move forward. So that's the backdrop before even starting this project. The site was troubled and it needed rebirth. So to the proposed project, as you can see on the screen, and David briefly introduced, this is approximately a $53 million project. It's an investment to make a 54,000 square foot travel center, 84 fuel pumps, more EV charging stations than anywhere in the metro, I think maybe the state too, but a lot. Extensive off-site traffic improvements, and there'll be hundreds of permanent and temporary construction jobs created by this project. I'm not going to take us through the fly-through because I think y'all have seen it. I put it here in case we need to go back. Site plan, same thing. I know you've spent a lot of time with this, but I wanted it in the packet for everybody to be able to look at and ask questions from. I am going to pause on this slide because this is, in some ways, this is what the project is about. I mean, there's the good stuff you get, but you have to get through this. It's the traffic improvements. There's approximately $10 million of off-site traffic improvements. And as I get to do this for a living and wake up every day and see many, many projects across the region, really, I will tell you pound for pound, this is a true statement. When you look at the size of this project and the extent of the off-site improvements, I've never seen one quite like this. This is a massive amount of off-sites to make this project move forward. But the Nolan Road corridor, aside from Wally's, we all know it's been a target for needed improvements for some time, and we're really happy that Wally's can be a part of making that happen. This is just an image if you're visual like me. This is all the various traffic improvements, high level, that need to happen to be able to move forward. Much of it needed before Wally's even showed up, but this is what that $10 million really looks like from a visual standpoint. How do you pay for that? I mean, just said pound for pound, this is incredible. We pay for it with what's proposed tonight, what you're considering, which is the public incentives package. As David said, I won't go in great detail, but really be here for questions. You can see there's tax increment financing, which has the pilots, which is the incremental real property taxes. You have the EATs, which is the sales taxes that would be generated by the project. You have the TDD, which David didn't talk about because it kind of happens outside of the city process, but it's good for you to understand the importance of it. It's an add-on 1% TDD sales tax. And then lastly is the Chapter 100 for to receive sales tax exemption on construction materials, as Mr. Martin said. So the next slide I wanted to put up was just a sense of the numbers for this capital stack. Like I said, it's about a $53 million project. And from a capital stack perspective, the TIF and the TDD, as you can see on the screen, make up about 16% of it, and the other 84% coming from private equity and debt. The total TIF and TDD combined cap, as David did say this number, is about $8.6 million in change plus financing cost. Included in that is that $1 million that goes to the city to be put back into the Nolan Road corridor improvements. Once again, if you're visual, this is really hard to read on the screen, but it is the sources and uses. It walks you through how that $8.6 million is allocated. Then we get, like I said, to probably what I think is my favorite part, because I think it's really compelling, and I think it's probably what you as the elected officials care the most about, which is the value proposition. So in brief, again, to introduce the pieces of this and then be ready if there's any questions, I'm just going to rifle through a lot of the benefits of moving forward with this proposal. One is job creation. As I said, 200 more or less permanent jobs and about 150 construction jobs happen if this incentives package moves forward to make the project a reality. Number two is Nolan Road improvements. This project, as I said, will put approximately $10 million into Nolan Road and making it a better place to traverse. Three is rebirthing a blighted property. This will be a $50 million injection into a dying blighted site that is, as they say in the statute, economically and socially a liability to the city and really all the other taxing jurisdictions. Number four is there's no public guarantee. Unlike maybe some other projects in the past, this is completely privately financed, debt and equity, and it's along with the special obligation bonds that come on top of that, but the key is the special obligation part. And David mentioned that too. I know it's unbelievably important to the city, which is why we repeat it and repeat it. There's no requested guarantee from the city or any other taxing jurisdiction. Number five, the incentives request is responsible in the sense it fits within the city's policies and what it looks for an incentives proposal. Number six is Wally's will draw visitors and promote other businesses within the corridor. 80% more or less of Wally's visitors are not coming from the immediate area. As Wally's thrives, other businesses will thrive in the area from the increased activity. Number seven is the city and the other taxing jurisdictions will see substantial financial returns. And I pause on that as we finish here. Substantial financial returns even when hopefully supporting and approving the financial incentives package. What do I mean? During the life of the TIF, for example, there will be an estimated $33 million in property and sales taxes that will flow to the taxing jurisdictions, including the city, and that's the net present value. That's talking about what that stream of money means today to the taxing jurisdictions. So the very last slide is a cost-benefit analysis. This is actually in all the TIF documentation, a tax TIF plan. It shows that this significant financial benefit that I just mentioned, and it breaks it down by taxing jurisdiction. So if I had to pick one tonight, I'm going to assume I should probably talk about the city, so I will really fast. Just to give you a sense for what this means on an annual basis for the city. The city starts out, these are projections, at around $415,000 of additional taxes while the TIF's in place. It then climbs to around $500,000 per year by around year 12. And then upon the estimated payoff of the special obligation bonds, which is right around year 14, the annual benefit to the city from Wally's driven property and sales taxes gets up to $930,000 a year to the city. So the tail of the tape in conclusion is that this redevelopment project, made possible by the public incentives that you're considering tonight, will be a huge financial win for the city and the other taxing jurisdictions. We thank you so much again for making time in your schedule to hear this tonight. And at the appropriate time, if the mayor asks, I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you all.
Thank you. Is it appropriate for questions from the council at this point?
You can either ask questions at this point or allow the public comment and ask questions at the end.
Let the public go first. Okay. Do you want to go? This is a public hearing, so I will call 3 times for anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and speak on behalf of this project, in favor of, opposition to, or for information purposes only. First call. So please come forward and address the dais if you'd like to. Second call. Anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor of, opposition to, or for information purposes only? Third and final call. Anyone want to come forward and speak in favor of, opposition to, or for information purposes only? With that, it's appropriate for me at this time, if I'm correct, is to close the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay. And
If you
we'll
want
close the
to,
public.
if you want to take questions during the public hearing, that's fine too.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it open and do that. Any questions on behalf of the council? Councilmember, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These are always tools that are a little confusing to the average Joe who doesn't spend their time thinking about EATs and pilots and other things. When you talk about 50% pilots, you're talking about payment in lieu of taxes to the special taxing jurisdictions. So we're talking about Mid-Continent Public Library, school district, et cetera. Could you just talk about how those things, how they break down, and that they still get 50% of what they would expect from this, and 50% goes to the developer, if I understand that tool correctly?
Sure, that's how the 50% surplus works. So what will happen is after approval of the project, we will coordinate with the county, and they, by law, are required to determine the current value of the project and the property. They will then freeze that value, and that's what's referred to as the pilot base for TIF purposes. The improvement value then will increase that over time,
Can you
and
speak?
that
near-
will produce the pilot increment, and that's what gets split 50-50. So the base will continue to produce an amount of tax that is frozen based on that value. It will fluctuate based on the current tax levies as taxing jurisdictions change their levies, but it will be frozen at that dollar amount that it's currently worth. And then any improvement value by virtue of the project, that amount will get split 50-50 between developer reimbursement and flowing to the taxing jurisdictions.
And just so people understand who the taxing jurisdictions are, the city's a very tiny piece of the taxing jurisdictions compared to the others.
That is correct. The lion's share of taxes in pretty much all Missouri jurisdictions flows to the school district.
Okay. And then EATS is the sales tax generated, the economic activity tax, and can you just speak to how that functions?
Sure. So the same concept is applicable to economic activity taxes. There's a base that is frozen, and then there's an increment that is produced by the project. The base, again, continues to flow to the taxing jurisdictions, and in this case, it mirrors pilots. Normally, the statutory pilot is 100% capture. The statutory EATS capture is 50%. And so by operation of law, that 50% sharing will occur where the developer takes half and the taxing jurisdictions receive the other half.
So if I was going to explain this to somebody who needed a primer, it would be that the property tax gets better because we've put this in place, and we're going to split the proceeds half to the developer and half to the taxing jurisdictions. And because we are creating new economic activity, we're going to split the difference between the taxing jurisdictions and the developers so that we can help them meet their threshold to be able to have a financially viable product.
Yes,
Fair? Okay.
that's the concept.
Okay, and the TDDs are determined, that's in state law that we can establish TDDs?
That's correct. It's a litigation proceeding under state law. It produces what we call a special taxing district, which is other than, school district, library district. It exists only for one purpose, and that purpose is to fund a particular project. And the procedure is, as I mentioned, a litigation proceeding. We have another item on the agenda here relating to that because the city is a respondent to that litigation. And the item that will come later is to approve a positive response. The petition is filed by the developer, and they're required to name in that litigation the local taxing authority. which in this case is the city. So what that does is allow the 1% additional sales tax, which only affects this project. The rest of the taxes that we're talking about, at least with respect to the taxing jurisdictions like the school district, city, county, library district, et cetera, those are spread over the entire district that they're involved with. This, as a special taxing district, is much smaller, only affects this one site, and so it has a very localized impact of that 1% add-on tax.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
thank you. This plan was approved by the TIF Commission. Can you talk about who's on the TIF Commission and their process for evaluating these kinds of projects?
Sure. So the TIF Commission is composed of 11 members. It has members from the city, from the county, from the school district, and then all other taxing jurisdictions share one member that they appoint. Each of those entities, other than the city, has its own criteria, essentially, that it's established, that it instructs its appointees informally, in some circumstances, that this is the sort of thing that this taxing jurisdiction is in favor of. Normally, what they like to see, and a big component of the city's revisions to its economic development policy a number of years ago, is that pilot sharing at the 50% level. So some of those taxing jurisdictions don't see much or any sales tax revenue. So for school district, for instance, they're not seeing much off this project if they don't share the pilots during the early part of the project. In a traditional 100% capture 23-year TIF, they may not see anything until the project is 2 decades old. So those folks are very aware, typically work for that entity or are close with the entity that they're representing, and are very aware of the policies that those entities have put into place in terms of what they'll support for tax increment financing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Martin, question on the TIF basically, and the TDD together basically recover costs of the improvements to transportation, traffic, and all of that. So we don't have a final approval from MoDOT yet, is my understanding. So if, and my understanding is further that MoDOT has come back and changed some of their requirements a bit. So let's assume just for a second, go with me on this for a second. Let's assume that the actual costs of the traffic, the improvements are $7 million instead of $8.6 million. What happens to that difference? How does that work?
So essentially, if it comes in under budget.
Right.
So the maximum reimbursement amount is already, I believe, less than that dollar amount and the other street-related public improvements. Essentially, under the plan and redevelopment agreement as written, the benefit of a reduction in costs would accrue to the developer and increase their return on investment. But I believe that the costs are such that it's unlikely that we'll see a situation where we have less public improvement costs than the reimbursement limit.
Yeah, I understand it's unlikely as well, and I gather that. Because we don't have a final, decision from MoDOT on the pieces of the puzzle, I just wasn't sure how that might work. So, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I'm not sure who this goes to, but so of the improvements that were shown, are there any of those improvement items that the city would eventually need to fund anyway? Like the Nolan Road and...
The city was looking at the realignment of Lynn Court. While that is a private drive, it does cause severe traffic issues. It was projected several years out to potentially use street sales tax funds, but having it remedied with private development in conjunction with private development is more typical of process on private infrastructure. But that is the only one of these improvements that the city was targeting with street sales tax dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Madam City Clerk, please proceed with 25-126, first reading, please.
25-126, first reading, an ordinance approving the Wally's tax increment financing plan, establishing a redevelopment area, designating the redevelopment as a blighted area, making other required findings for the redevelopment plan, designating a developer, approving a redevelopment agreement with that developer, and directing staff to implement the redevelopment plan. First reading.
Thank you. And then let's please proceed with 25-123, first reading, please.
25-123, first reading, an ordinance approving a redevelopment project for the Wally's tax increment financing plan and initiating tax increment financing therein. First reading.
Thank you. And I don't need to do anything else with this. We can just proceed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And now with the second public hearing, it's already been open, so I don't need to actually open this public hearing, but we do allow people to talk and present at this point. Am I correct?
That's correct. So this second public hearing is with respect to the Chapter 100 component of this structure, and the Chapter 100 bonds will be issued solely for the purpose of producing sales tax exemption on construction materials. As I mentioned earlier, that produces a benefit in reduced cost to the developer that's estimated at approximately $2.3 million. This will be a fairly standard Chapter 100 transaction, as the city has approved several times before. It will be a short-term transaction. It will only exist during the construction period, and there is no city liability with respect to these bonds. It is a buy-your-own bond transaction in which the developer will be the bond purchaser.
Very good. And so I will call for anyone who would like to come forward to speak in favor of, opposition to, or for informational purposes only for this part of the program. Please
Mayor
proceed.
Kurt Peterson, here on behalf of Wally's, 900 West 48th Place, Kansas City, Missouri. Just wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind having everything that I said before pulled into this public hearing as part of that record too. That's all. Be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Anyone else like to come forward and speak in favor of, opposition to, or for information purposes only? Anyone else like to come forward and speak in favor of, opposition to, or for information purposes only? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And then, Madam City Clerk, if you can please proceed with reading 25-124.
25-124, first reading, an ordinance supporting the formation of the Wally's Transportation Development District and approving a cooperative agreement. First reading.
Thank you very much. And
I think we missed an ordinance there on first reading. So at the conclusion of the hearing, it would have been 25-125.
okay, so read number 2, read 25-125?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
25-125, first reading, an ordinance approving a plan for an industrial development project for the Wally's redevelopment project, authorizing the City of Independence, Missouri to issue taxable industrial development revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $52,050,000, and authorizing certain documents and actions in connection therewith. First reading.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, anything else we need to finish to make sure that we're all copacetic with this one?
So just to stay in order with the agenda, let's go ahead and read 25-124 now.
Okay, thank you.
25-124, first reading, an ordinance supporting the formation of the Wally's Transportation Development District and approving a cooperative agreement. First reading.
Thank you. Anything else?
That is it.
That works. Madam Interim City Manager, anything from you before we wrap this meeting up?
No, sir. Thank you.
And since this was a special meeting, I'm not going to have council comments, so if we can forego that and just go into the next meeting. So we'll close this meeting. And then we will call the next meeting into session, which is the City Council Study Session, December 8th, 2025, 6 p.m. at the City Council Chambers, 111 East Maple. The first item on the agenda is the Mid-Continent Public Library's plan for property at this property site. And so Okay? So, Madam Interim City Manager, I might have you just tee this one up a little bit while they're